Samantha Bennell disappeared on September 24th, 2005. When a person disappears without a trace, often the most critical information is hidden in their actions and words from the days before they vanished. Samantha Bennell's last known whereabouts may hold the clues to what happened to her. A rebellious teen who's run away before suddenly vanishes far from home.
If we couldn't get her home, she was gonna end up something really bad.
Her fun night out with new friends turns into a nightmare.
You know, she left with them. She didn't come back with them. Where's she at? It was panic.
Investigators uncover frightening clues.
My concern was that somebody may have been chasing her.
Her mother begins an agonizing search through a shadowy world that leads to a shocking discovery.
It became my secret prison. I think that's maybe the worst thing I ever had to do. It was just heart-wrenching. My baby girl was missing, and I had to find her.
Eighteen-year-old Samantha Bennell and her 22-year-old boyfriend Chris work together on a magazine crew, a traveling group of young people who sell magazine subscriptions door to door.
We traveled around the United States. They would drop us off in different neighborhoods, basically just peddling magazines door to door. Sometimes it would be apartment buildings, condos, townhouses. As long as there was a door there, you knocked on it.
Samantha and Chris met just a few months earlier in July.
You hit it off right from the start. She stood out to me. She had bright eyes. She was pretty bubbly. She always had something nice to say about people, and I really enjoyed that about her.
After growing up as a restless teen in Alaska, Samantha craved adventure. When she found the magazine crew job, it seemed like the perfect opportunity.
She had decided that she wanted to see the world. It was just, oh wow, you're gonna take me all over the country and I'm gonna get to see everything. If something sounded good to her, she'd just do it.
She was a free spirit. She enjoyed the thought of traveling in the United States, meet new people, and get paid to do it. You know, it was awesome. We were all doing the same thing pretty much, you know, just all trying to escape something.
Even though Samantha and Chris loved traveling, working on the magazine crew became a grind. They leave their team in Sacramento, California.
They just kind of slave drove us. There was no excuses, you know. You didn't have your sales for the day. You were bumming off somebody else to eat. We just wanted to get off the road.
I got a phone call from Samantha and Chris, and they were stuck in Sacramento, California. They had enough money for one night in a motel room. I paid for a second night, and I did as I had always done. Where do you want to go? I'll buy you a plane ticket home. I'll buy you a bus ticket to your grandma's. I want you to come home, but if you won't come home, where will you go that you're safe?
Samantha tells her mom they want to go to Chris's parents' house near Claremont, California, about an hour east of Los Angeles.
I wouldn't send them unless they gave me Chris's parents' number and let me call and make sure that there was a place for them to go to.
After talking to Chris's mom, Mary buys the young couple bus tickets from Sacramento. Samantha gets in touch with Mary once they arrive.
Samantha called me, and it's like, Mom, I'm here, I'm safe, everything's okay. I love you, I'll call you later.
But it would be the last time Mary hears from her daughter before she disappears. Chris and Samantha stay with his family near Claremont, but things don't go as planned. Reluctantly, they decide to return to their old magazine crew.
I was hoping that my mom, she would let us stay there and it would be all right, but like that wasn't gonna happen. We decided that the only other way we were gonna be able to stay together is if we stayed on the magazine crew. And I asked my mom for bus money, or for tickets to get back up there.
As Samantha and Chris wait at the bus station to rejoin their old crew in Sacramento, a new opportunity arises. One that will impact their lives forever.
Two guys approached us and asked us if we wanted a job. And I already knew that they were going to try to get us on some kind of sales crew.
The couple is recruited to join a new magazine crew that's staying at a hotel next door. Samantha and Chris go to the hotel and hang out, waiting for the rest of the team to return from work.
We just wanted to wait for everybody to get back and see who we were going to be around. Who are these people, you know, you want to meet them. But everybody seemed pretty cool, and she ended up talking to a couple girls.
Samantha tells Chris that some of the crew members are going to the movies.
She asked if I wanted to go too. I said, you know, go ahead. I don't want to go. Have fun and, you know, be careful. See you when you get back. And I gave her a kiss, and she took off.
Several hours later, the crew returns to the hotel. What should have been a relaxing Saturday night suddenly takes an ominous turn. Samantha isn't with them.
At first, I didn't even know what to think. I was like, where the hell is she? You know, she left with them. She didn't come back with them. Where's she at? It was panic.
Desperate, Chris starts drilling the others.
I asked everybody, where the hell's Samantha at? And, oh, she got up in the middle of the movie and she just ran out. She was crying. Okay, well, what else? You know, like, what else? And there was nothing else. They weren't telling me anything else. That's all that happened.
Chris hears the same story from several crew members who'd been at the movies, including a girl who'd been sitting near Samantha. Chris finds their lack of concern for Samantha troubling.
They just let her run out of the theater, and that always kind of struck a chord with me. It's like, who's like that, you know? I would have, like, tried to follow her and see what was going on with her. Just never added up to me.
He hadn't noticed any signs that Samantha was upset earlier in the evening at the hotel.
It was very surprising to me that she was in a happy mood when she left, and they're reporting to me that she got up crying, running out of the theater. Didn't make sense.
The crew members tell Chris they didn't see Samantha when the movie was over.
They said that they had gone, you know, upstairs and checked out if she was there or not, and she wasn't there. They didn't know her, so, I mean, maybe they thought she was back at the hotel. I don't know what they thought. They kind of just passed it off like it, nonchalantly, like it was nothing. And it made me mad.
Even though he's upset by their attitude, Chris believes what they're telling him is the truth.
I talked to one guy right there at the van as soon as they pulled up. But all the rest of the people, they all said the same thing.
Chris heads out to search for Samantha at the theater.
The guy that takes the tickets, I asked him if he had seen anybody running out of the movie theater. Looked like she was upset, and he said, no, I haven't seen anything like that. I searched around, you know, I searched the parking lot, you know, just looking around everywhere, and I didn't come up with anything.
Chris makes the hour-long walk back to the hotel. He doesn't see Samantha anywhere along the way.
I felt pretty helpless. I didn't even know if she knew how to get back to the hotel.
Back at the hotel, there's no sign of Samantha.
So I called her mom. I asked her if she had heard from her, and she said that she hadn't.
By this time, it's about 1 o'clock in the morning. Chris tells her the magazine crew's puzzling story. When Mary hears that Samantha seems to have run off, she tells Chris something he doesn't expect. Coming up, was Samantha hiding something from Chris?
I just remember thinking, like, how could she do that to me? How could she do it?
When 18-year-old Samantha Bennell doesn't return from the movies, her boyfriend Chris calls her mom in Alaska. What he learns is disturbing.
She told me that it wasn't unlike Samantha to just go off and do her own thing and not tell anybody where she's going. Basically, it sounded to me, you know, kind of like she probably took off on you, and she might be somewhere else with somebody else.
I was pretty sleepy when he woke me up. I think I mentioned to him that she'd had a boyfriend that was in a nearby city. She had run away so many times, anything got stressful or too hard. It was kind of her MO. If she didn't like what was happening, she'd leave. She'd go find something else.
Samantha's mom, Mary, recalls Samantha first acting out when she was about 13, after Mary and Samantha's stepfather moved the family to Palmer, Alaska, about an hour north of Anchorage.
Samantha kind of was withdrawn from the family, and there were a lot of arguments. She was angry with us for moving her. She tended to sneak out her window at night and go do what she wanted to do, party with her friends.
Mary saw a side of her daughter begin to fade away.
Samantha was extremely bright and made friends easily. When she'd walk into a room, she'd just light it up. She did extremely well in school when she wanted to.
Mary's attempts to get this former A student back on track seemed futile.
We'd sent her to counseling. Everything we attempted to do just seemed to backfire on us. She got bold enough where she'd just walk out the door and slam it in her face. She'd run away for a day or two, but we'd know where she was. One of her friends would call us and let us know where she was, or she'd call us and let us know where she was. I think Samantha felt like she was less than everybody else somehow. She really wanted to be part of the group so much that she tried drugs and she'd drink. And I think if it hadn't been for peer pressure, I don't think she'd have ever done those.
After about 3 years of trying to rein in Samantha's wild behavior, Mary says her 16-year-old daughter went to a treatment program.
It was just not quite the worst time in my life, but close.
But according to her mother, when Samantha came back, she began turning her life around.
We were talking and finally got to the point where the fight was over and my daughter was my friend again. She was attending night classes to finish her high school and working during the day. I envisioned my daughter actually having a future rather than ending up on the streets, hooked on drugs, running from everything and everybody. It was just like the end of this long, dark tunnel.
In March 2005, Samantha shared a new plan with her mother. She wanted to go to California with her roommate's brother.
I was a little worried about her going to California. She struggled so hard to get where she's at. She's doing good, but we couldn't really stop her.
Any fears Mary had began to ease once Samantha arrived in Southern California.
I'm hearing from her 2 or 3 times a week. He's taken her to the beach and he's taken her to the mountains. I could just hear the happy in her voice.
But by May, about 4 months before Samantha vanished, her calls to Mary became more sporadic.
We're lucky if we hear from her once every 3 weeks. And all of the same people that she'd been involved in drugs with were hearing from her almost daily. When we do get a phone call, it's just, "I'm okay, Mom," and I'm not hearing my happy girl anymore. I'm hearing the girl that I fought with that was on drugs, that something just wasn't right with. And I knew that if we couldn't get her home, she was gonna end up something really bad.
Then, in July, she joined the magazine crew where she met Chris. The night Samantha disappears, Chris is saddened to learn she has a habit of running off.
My girlfriend just left me, how would you feel, I just remember thinking like, how could she do that to me? How could she do it? After that, I was a little bit less frantic. I wasn't really thinking that she was in a whole lot of danger.
Chris tells Mary that he'll hang on to Samantha's things, which are still with him at the hotel.
There was definitely a spot where I hoped that she would come back, and it just never happened.
About a week after Samantha disappears, Chris and the magazine crew head to Phoenix, their next destination.
After that, I didn't really have any contact with Samantha's mom at all. I did think about contacting her, but if she just left, then that's not even something that I want to think about. It's just a bad memory, my girlfriend leaving me.
In the days after she hears about Samantha running out of the movie theater, Mary is in an all-too-familiar limbo.
I'm thinking that I'll hear from her soon, needing money or a ticket or help of some kind.
At the time, she suspected that Samantha was running away or was displaying some of the same behavior that she had in the past.
Still, Mary can't help checking to see if Samantha's all right.
Over the next few days, Mary attempted to contact Chris's mother, but received only voicemail and didn't get any callbacks.
I called everybody on my phone list that I had for keeping track of her, that she kept in contact with regularly. I probably did that for every day for a week, and nobody had heard anything. She never stayed out of contact with everybody for a week. She might not have called me, but she never stayed out of contact.
As the days stretch on, Samantha's silence leaves Mary panicked. This begins to seem like more than her daughter's rebellious behavior. Finally, after nearly 2 weeks, Mary tries filing a missing persons report. Police in Alaska tell her to contact authorities in California. But Mary has no idea which precinct in California to contact, since she doesn't know where the theater or the hotel were.
The only thing I had to go on was Chris's mother's phone number.
After locating several precincts that might be in the area, Mary is told that an 18-year-old has the right to leave home without contact. Still, Mary keeps trying.
But if I didn't have a last known address, they couldn't take a missing persons report. And I gave him the phone number for Chris's mother, and they said, that's not our area. And I said, well, what area is it? I don't know, and they hung up on me.
Mary realizes she's alone in her search.
I always thought that, when somebody went missing, you went through your police department and they helped you. And I couldn't get any help.
So she turns to the only resource she has left, the internet.
I searched her credit history to see if she'd applied for a job or, an apartment. Information about human trafficking, doing everything I can to try to find any kind of hint of her.
It's been 2 months since Samantha Bunnell disappeared. As the holidays approach, Mary hopes she'll be hearing from her daughter any day now.
Samantha never let a holiday go by without calling. And she never, ever missed sending her Aunt Liz a Christmas card.
But Christmas comes and goes. No one hears from Samantha. As 2005 draws to an end, Mary's outlook is bleak.
I figured when she didn't call by Christmas that the only thing it could be is that she was in a position where she could not call. Somebody had abducted her or she had been trafficked. This wasn't Samantha being angry or using drugs. I knew something was really wrong.
Now that the holidays are over, and Samantha seems to have completely dropped out of contact, Mary shifts her online search to a darker focus.
By January, I don't think I'm searching anything but unidentified body websites. It became almost a nightly ritual. The Doe Network is the website that I looked on the most often.
The Doe Network, a volunteer-run website, has compiled a database with artist renderings of the unidentified dead. It includes details of when and where an unidentified body was found, anything that might help someone identify their missing loved one.
Searching it is just unbelievably horrible. The images that stay in your head, they're there forever and they don't go away.
Mary spends her nights searching for Samantha, scanning picture after picture.
I kept it kind of secret. I didn't want anybody to know that I was looking for my daughter's dead body. My husband thought that it wasn't healthy for me to be doing that. When my husband would go to sleep at night, I would slip out of bed and search the internet all night long, and when it was time for him to get up and go to work, I'd slip quietly into bed next to him, and when he'd go to work, I'd get what I had to done and back to searching the internet. It became my secret prison.
The grisly routine becomes Mary's only way to keep going.
My baby girl was missing, and I just didn't have a choice. I had to find her.
Four months after Mary learns her daughter has vanished, she gets another unexpected call. This time, it's from a detective in Hanahan, South Carolina, with a possible lead.
They had found Samantha's luggage.
Coming up, Is Samantha in danger?
Inside the luggage was some of Samantha's clothing, along with male clothing.
Four months after Samantha Bunnell disappears, her mother Mary fears she may be dead. Then, Samantha's suitcase turns up in Hanahan, South Carolina, more than 2,000 miles from where she was last seen.
When they found her luggage and called me, I had this glimmer of hope that she was still alive.
The Hanahan detective tells Mary that a man spotted the suitcase sitting in his driveway, with no idea how it got there. When Hanahan investigators open the suitcase, what they find is disturbing.
Inside the luggage was some of Samantha's clothing, along with male clothing.
It was mostly men's clothes and baseball hats. There was a sweater of Samantha's that I had bought her, and one of Samantha's socks, but nothing else in the luggage was hers.
When Mary tells Hanahan detectives that Samantha has been missing for 4 months, they begin searching the area, hoping the 18-year-old might still be nearby. But by now, the lead seems to have gone cold.
No one had seen her. They even did a press release to see if anyone knew Samantha's whereabouts.
After about 3 weeks, Hanahan investigators find no trace of the girl who'd set out to see the world. But the detective handling Samantha's case does discover another way to help locate her.
When I told him how long it had been since we've heard from her, the first thing he did was scold me for not filing a missing persons report. And I said, whoa, stop. I've tried to file a missing persons report. Nobody will take this report. And I don't know what to do. He said, I will make sure that this gets done. And he contacted the Alaska State Patrol. And he told them that if they wouldn't file the report, he would.
6 months after the September night that Samantha vanished, Alaska State Troopers finally file a missing persons report. It goes into a database called NCIC, the National Crime Information Center, making Samantha's record available to law enforcement nationwide.
I felt like I had help. Now, instead of just me looking, I've got hope that maybe if she's pulled over, they'll say, you're reported as being missing.
Authorities ask Mary for Samantha's identifying data, like fingerprints and dental records, to include with her missing persons report.
I think that's maybe the worst thing I ever had to do. It was just heart-wrenching. When you bring in dental x-rays, you know you're not looking for a live person, and a good chance you're not even looking for a whole body. You're maybe looking for just a piece of it.
Mary tells police they can find Samantha's fingerprints on file from when she'd run away from home years earlier. An entire year passes after Samantha's luggage turns up, and Mary gets no new information about her daughter's case. Her brief hope that the free-spirited 18-year-old might be found alive starts to fade. Once again, she begins obsessively poring over pictures on the Doe network.
It got to be the point where I was doing it even during the day. I wasn't hiding it as much.
One night, a face on her computer screen grabs Mary's attention.
I found a picture that kind of looked like Samantha. It looked like she could have been a sister or a cousin. I couldn't seem to get past the description of the clothing was exactly the type of clothing that Samantha wore.
The girl in the photo was found wearing a jogging suit. But when Mary reads the rest of the description, she realizes this probably isn't Samantha.
The shoes are size 7, Samantha's got size 5 feet. There were no freckles. And the composite drawing had perfectly straight hair, and Samantha had curly hair that she hated for as long as I can remember.
Mary also believes that the NCIC system should have beat her to this discovery.
Since they filed the missing persons report, it should have automatically matched.
The NCIC system compares data from missing persons reports, like age, gender, and date last seen, with records of the unidentified dead. If there's a match, investigators are alerted and can compare fingerprints, DNA, or dental x-rays.
So this couldn't be her. This couldn't be Samantha.
But Mary can't help coming back to the picture of this girl.
I'd end up looking back at this same picture every night. The date matches the same day that Samantha went missing. It's within hours of the time that I got the phone call.
Finally, Mary emails a link of the girl's description to someone else close to Samantha.
I emailed my sister, Liz, a copy of the picture. When Liz called me the next morning, she said, "I think it's her."
Coming up, has Mary finally found Samantha?
The first thing he told me is, "No, it's not going to be your daughter."
Get more Disappeared online at investigationdiscovery.com. Almost 2 years after Samantha Bunnell never returned from the movies, her mother Mary wonders whether she's found a Jane Doe that might be her daughter. Mary gets up the courage to call the contact listed on the Doe Network page. She reaches David Van Norman, deputy coroner in San Bernardino County, California.
I told Mary that I didn't believe that this could be her daughter.
Van Norman says that for the past 19 months, the San Bernardino coroner's office has tried unsuccessfully to match 159 missing girls with this Jane Doe, number 1705.
He told me, "But we'll try to match it anyway."
Van Norman pulls up Samantha's NCIC record, looking for at least one of 3 crucial elements investigators use to rule out possible matches.
I'm standing at the place of death of some unidentified person, and I'm looking backwards in an attempt to understand where that person came from. There's only 3 ways to do that, and that's fingerprints, dental records, DNA. It all comes down to those.
Mary tells him Alaska authorities should have filed Samantha's fingerprints and dental records with her missing persons report. But when Van Norman pulls up Samantha's NCIC record, it lists no fingerprints or dental records on file. He contacts Anchorage authorities and learns that Samantha's fingerprints had been destroyed years earlier, after she had run away and returned to her parents' house back in Palmer, Alaska. He then asks investigators in Palmer for the dental records Mary says she'd brought in a year earlier. But after a couple of days, Van Norman still doesn't have them. Mary grows desperate, waiting for the x-rays to get to him.
I finally couldn't stand it anymore, not knowing whether it was Samantha's picture or not. It's the absolute worst time in my entire life.
Finally, Mary goes back to the dentist's office. After 19 months of sleepless nights searching for her daughter, Mary sends a scan of the x-rays in an email to Van Norman. The morning after Van Norman forwards Samantha's dental records to the forensic dentist to match against Jane Doe 1705, Van Norman gets an email with the results.
When I opened the email, the identity had been confirmed. Jane Doe 17 was Samantha Bunnell. I immediately contacted Mary Weir and confirmed the identity of Jane Doe 17 as her daughter.
I remember crying, and I was crying so hard I was shaking. I felt sad and relieved at the same time. At least now I knew where she was.
I have to think what took 19 months to make this identification. What else could we have done to make the identification faster?
Van Norman recalls telling Mary why initially he was skeptical this Jane Doe could have been her daughter.
Samantha Bunnell, according to the NCIC record, was last seen on March 6, 2006, and that's 6 months after Jane Doe 17 had died. And Mary Weir said, that can't be right.
It turns out that even though Samantha went missing in September 2005, the date on her NCIC record says she was last seen March 6, 2006. Mary learns this date corresponds to the day she filed the missing persons report with police in Palmer, Alaska. The discovery is shocking.
There's no possible way that the match could have been made with the way they filed the missing persons report.
It was obvious that the person who entered Samantha Bunnell's missing persons NCIC record into the system did not understand the implications of entering March 6th, 06. If a person is alive and well sometime after a body is found, it will be ruled out and would never be compared because the inaccurate information, they were preventing her record from ever matching against Jane Doe 17's. What was critical in this particular instance was that Mary Weir started her own investigation.
At the time she was searching for Samantha, Mary never knew about the inaccurate date on Samantha's NCIC record because it is only available to law enforcement personnel.
I did everything right. I did everything that they'd let me do. I did everything I could do. I filed the reports. I looked. I called. I begged. I pleaded for help. And I thought I had gotten it.
After almost 2 years, Mary finally learns why Samantha never returned from the movies that night.
I was working day shift, and it was reported to me that a young girl had been killed on the Interstate 10 freeway. She was struck by several vehicles and had been pronounced dead at the scene quite late in the evening, about 11:08.
When the girl's body was taken to the county morgue, no identifying information was found, so Van Norman gathered data to create an NCIC record for this Jane Doe, number 17 in the year 2005.
That would include her description, height, her weight, her eye color, fingerprints. It would also note the dental characteristics, which can then be compared against missing persons cases across the country.
Van Norman took photographs to create the drawing that Mary eventually saw on the Doe Network website. Samantha's picture was then distributed to the media. Tragically, since it only appeared in local media, Mary in Alaska never had a chance to see her daughter's face in the news.
Frankly, I was stunned as days turned into weeks and weeks turned into months that Jane Doe 17 was not identified. We did not believe that Jane Doe 17 was a transient because her clothing was clean, she was well nourished. This is a person who has a family, and so as the case continued on and match after match was ruled out, we were amazed.
Van Norman kept Samantha's body from being buried longer than usual, confident this young girl's family would soon find her. Once Samantha is identified, Van Norman recommends an investigation into her death due to suspicious circumstances.
The fact that she was found on the freeway in a place that a pedestrian really shouldn't have been.
Witnesses report Samantha running in the middle of the freeway when she was struck by several vehicles. And there's another troubling detail.
Her pockets had been turned out, as though someone had gone through them. My concern was that somebody may have been chasing her across the freeway and removed something from her pockets that either could have identified her or identified them.
Coming up, investigators unravel the moments before Samantha was killed. After almost 2 years, Samantha Bunnell's body is finally identified. The California Highway Patrol launches an investigation into her death. Was she the victim of a crime?
Her pockets were found turned inside out, suggesting maybe somebody had gone through her pockets after she'd been hit. It was unusual why Samantha was out on the freeway. Was somebody out there with her? Was somebody chasing her?
Sergeant Chris Fisher from the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Office investigates Samantha's unusual death. The driver who first hit Samantha recalled the frightening moment of impact.
He was traveling about 70 miles an hour, and in the blink of an eye, he saw a female running into the freeway. He said that he tried to avoid hitting her by turning to the left, but heard a thump and believes he struck her on the front right portion of his vehicle.
Detectives learn that he and other drivers couldn't have avoided hitting the 18-year-old.
Based on witness statements, Samantha was running with the flow of traffic in the center divider, and then she ran directly into traffic.
Sergeant Fisher hears a particularly disturbing detail from a driver who spotted Samantha just moments before she was hit.
One witness remembered seeing Samantha running with a blank stare on her face, almost as if she was out of it, not looking towards the vehicle that were coming at her.
Investigators question how Samantha ended up in the middle of the I-10, one of Southern California's busiest freeways.
One way, obviously, would be to run and dodge vehicles. She could get on from an on-ramp. It's possible that she was in a vehicle and dropped off on the freeway or in the center divider.
But when Sergeant Fisher interviews drivers who stopped at the tragic scene, he gets no leads.
No one witnessed her running from the side of the freeway to the center divider. They didn't see anybody chasing her, they didn't see anybody with her, didn't see what she was running from or where she was running to.
When Sergeant Fisher speaks to the first responders, they tell him Samantha's pockets could have been turned inside out from the force of impact.
It's not uncommon for pedestrians that are hit by vehicles to have their clothing disarray, sometimes even torn off.
Detectives investigate other explanations for Samantha's dangerous behavior that night.
I wanted to know the reason why somebody would run into traffic. Whether it was they were under the influence of alcohol or narcotics and didn't know what they were doing. Were they possibly trying to kill themselves?
Sergeant Fisher reviews Samantha's autopsy toxicology report for possible clues. What he learns seems significant.
She was under the influence of alcohol, had trace amounts of amphetamine and cannabis in her system.
When David Van Norman read the toxicology results, he didn't consider these drug and alcohol levels high enough to be a factor in her death. Investigators locate Chris, living in Missouri. They don't tell him that Samantha is dead, believing it might influence his answers. According to Chris, Samantha's substance abuse demons didn't follow her while they were together.
I know that she had experimented with methamphetamine. She never told me that, it was like a major habit. I had never known anything that she did other than smoke weed and take a drink. But she didn't do that every day.
When speaking with Samantha's mother, Mary, Sergeant Fisher learns that the rebellious 18-year-old had taken antidepressants. But by the time Samantha left for California in March 2005, Mary believes Samantha had stopped taking her medication. Still, Mary doesn't think depression led her daughter to run in front of traffic.
I don't think she got on to the center of that freeway of her own free will.
Chris also doesn't believe depression would have contributed to her death.
She never came across as depressed to me. She would have moments where she would be like solemn, and it wasn't real often. Most of the time she was in a good mood.
Sergeant Fisher probes deeper into Samantha's frame of mind that night.
I asked Chris if they had any type of disagreement or argument before she went to the movie theater, and he said that they did not.
The homicide team works to piece together Samantha's last night. Sergeant Fisher locates a movie theater about a mile from where she was killed. But now, 2 years later, no one at the theater recalls seeing Samantha run out that night.
We don't even know for sure if she was there.
With no clear leads from Samantha's last night, investigators hope Chris can help explain another mysterious clue in her case. Still not revealing that Samantha was killed, Sergeant Fisher shows him a photo of the suitcase found in South Carolina, as well as its contents.
There were my clothes in there. I'd collect like sports hats, like a baseball cap in every different town we went to. Some of my jeans were in there.
Chris recalls the last time he had the luggage, shortly after Samantha disappeared.
In between Phoenix, Arizona and Albuquerque, New Mexico, my luggage got stolen along with her stuff.
Finally, Sergeant Fisher tells Chris the real reason Samantha never returned that night, almost 2 years ago.
My heart just sank. It's because I cared about her. That shouldn't happen to anybody, but especially not Samantha. I just wish I had never let her go with people I didn't know, you know, people that she didn't really know. If I'd have just told her not to go, then none of this would have happened. I just don't feel like I did my job as a boyfriend. Like, I feel like I let her mom down just to protect her daughter, you know, just to be there, you know, and I always was, and that time I wasn't. And I do want her mom to know that I'm sorry.
After speaking with Chris and examining all the other information, Sergeant Fisher concludes his investigation.
I do not believe that there was foul play involved. There was nothing to suggest that anyone had anything to do with Samantha's death.
But Mary is haunted by questions about what could have led Samantha into such a treacherous spot.
I think Samantha was in some kind of trouble that night. Somebody may have been making a drug deal and thought she had drugs in her pocket. I don't know whether the magazine sales group got in a fight with her and pushed her out in the middle of the front. If some stranger picked her up.
About the need for identifier records like fingerprints, dental records, and DNA to make even more matches.
Just the idea, the image of Mary sitting there at night in the glare of a computer screen and seeing these images, some of which are just awful. Somehow, I knew that this is why we do what it is that we do. There are thousands of mothers who wonder what happened to their children. Every one of those unidentified persons has a name that I don't know, but that I'm going to make it my mission in life to try to send home. Mary. Oh, it's such an honor to finally be with you.
Oh, yeah.
Now, helping other families find their missing loved one.
Do nothing. My message for the families is be proactive. It just breaks my heart to think of all of these bodies out there that they have families, they have names. She wasn't Jane Doe number 17. She was my daughter. And she was beautiful and vibrant and full of life. Hundreds of thousands of families that are living in the pain that I lived in. And it's got to be stopped. That's the only thing that gives me the strength to even get out of bed some days. It's what Samantha would want me to do. She would not want me to let her death just be it.